Welcome to Unleashed at Work and Home. I'm Colleen Pilar, and this is where pet professionals come for honest conversations about what it really takes to show up for yourself while serving the animals you love. If you've ever felt caught between compassion and exhaustion, you're in the right place. Here we explore what it means to reconnect with your inner wisdom and rediscover the joy that brought you to this work. Make sure to join my email community at colleenpilar.com for gentle, practical insights designed specifically for pet professionals. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to Unleashed at Work and Home. I am so excited today. My guest today is Dr. Patricia McConnell, who I'm sure you know of, but in case you don't, she's an animal behaviorist and the author of The Other End of the Leash, For the Love of Dog, and The Education of Will. But she also has a new mystery out, which I got to read, called A Way to Me. And I promise not to give away any spoilers in this conversation, but I do want to say right up front that no dog dies in the making of this novel. So welcome, Tricia. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much. What a joy to be here. I'm just really happy to be here, Colleen. Thank you for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you. And so I did just say that no dog dies in the making of this novel, and that is really important. So why don't we just start right there? Why is that so important for those of us dog lovers to know that right off the bat?
It's a great question. I've been thinking about that a lot because A Way to Me is a murder mystery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people die and murder mysteries are incredibly popular. So we tend to be pretty okay with that. I'm actually fascinated by that. And um, my theory, and I'll just go over it really, really quickly, is that basically dogs get us coming and going. They are both individuals who are relatively helpless, right? They don't have thumbs, they can't open the door, they can communicate, but they can't speak English, they can't talk language. So they're relatively helpless, and they engender all of that very hardwired nurturing, that human nurturing. It's so hardwired. If it wasn't, we'd be extinct as a species because
Mm-hmm.
anybody who's ever been around a 2-year-old kid, right? So there's that, and it's really, really ingrained and important. But I say they get us coming and going because on the flip side, dogs also give us, at least we perceive that they give us, what psychologists call non-judgmental positive regard, right?
Mm-hmm.
They love us no matter how much we've screwed up. Now, you and I both know that, dogs have a side eye, that I actually think there is a canine curse in some individual breeds. But in general, dogs are ridiculously forgiving. They treat us like the parents that we all want, but nobody can have because your parents actually have to raise you, right?
Yeah.
So they're both infants and parents. And that's my best guess, is they play this role that no other individual plays in our life. And that's why the idea of a dog dying, I mean, I'm the same way. I'm so glad you mentioned it. I actually had to talk down the editor, who was wonderful at Kensington. She made the book better. She's wonderful, but she was like, "You can't tell them that. You're gonna ruin the plot." And I was like, "Oh, no, no, no. I have to tell them that because I wouldn't read the book." You know? And everybody I know in the dog world wouldn't read the book. So thank you for starting right off. I will tell you, there is drama.
There
There is
is.
drama. The dogs are basically characters in the book. And
Mm-hmm.
there is drama that
We will be
breeds them
concerned about dogs.
dogs, but no dog dies in the making of this novel.
No dog dies in the making of this novel. So I think it is so cool that your trajectory has moved you toward writing fiction now. But I want to go way back because it is so interesting to me. I like to ask a lot of my guests, when you were 10, what did Trisha think she was going to be when she grew up?
Oh, I love that question. When I was somewhere around there, maybe 8, 9, somewhere around there, I remember this really well. When I was asked, "What do you want to be?" growing up in the desert, Phoenix and Tucson, Arizona, I said, "I want to marry a rancher."
Mm,
Now, think about that. This was 1950, what, 5, 6 maybe? I'm growing up in Phoenix, Arizona, or Tucson, and it never occurred to me that I could have a career that was based on animals. What I
Mhm.
wanted was to live with animals. That's what I wanted. And the only way in the world that I lived in that you could possibly do that was to marry a rancher. No kidding. Seriously. Doesn't it say a lot about how much our world has changed? I mean, ask a
Yeah.
10-year-old girl now who wants to work with animals. Is her answer
Mhm.
gonna be, I want to marry a rancher? I don't think so.
No, it is
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. So it says a lot about, there's a lot that's not right about our world right now, but that's one of the pieces of progress that's just really gratifying.
It is really gratifying. Okay, so I have a bazillion questions about your book, but I would love a bullet point journey from 10-year-old Trisha who thought she was going to marry a rancher to becoming an animal behaviorist and now this. So can you kind of give us the bullet points of
Oh,
how you
yeah.
got from there to here?
Oh my goodness gracious. So really quickly, I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder for one semester. I had to drop out because I had the worst case of mononucleosis ever recorded in the history of Arizona, according to my doctor, if I remember that right. I
Wow.
was, I was really sick, and so I had to drop out. And then a year later, I met Doug McConnell, my first practice husband, um, and got married very, very young. We moved, I think, 12 times in 8 years. I did everything.
Wow.
Um, from being a cashier at a bookstore to working at a daycare center to ending up working with troubled adolescents in Alaska, which I absolutely loved. We separated. I came back to Wisconsin, where I had been happiest, and I loved Wisconsin. I still do. I love the green of it. I love the hills. Um, and I had good friends here. So I worked actually as a sort of executive assistant at a nonprofit for alcohol and other drug abuse. Um, Ended up, I will just quickly tell you the story because I think we started the theme about, women in careers right now.
Mhm.
So I was running, it was my job to put on a conference for hundreds of people. It was a really big deal. It was my job to put on an entire conference. And I was actually even going to speak at it about women and alcoholism because at that point in time, nobody talked about women alcoholics. It was all men. All the treatment was designed around men. So me and somebody else were going to talk about, women can be alcoholics too. They need to be considered. I got interrupted by my boss who said, we need somebody to take notes in a meeting. There's a big meeting. We need somebody to take notes. Can you do that? And I was like, I'm running a conference, but okay, right? I'll be the good girl. And so I'm at this big conference table. People are introducing themselves. The man on my right introduces himself, and I'm about to say I'm Patricia McConnell, and the man to my left introduces himself as
Mm.
if I wasn't there. I didn't exist. I didn't matter. And it really hit hard, Colleen. It hit me really hard.
Yeah.
And I remember going back to my apartment. I cried for an entire weekend. Like I wasn't happy in my job. I was basically doing a lot of typing and and I was also actually doing a lot of really important content work, but not getting paid or credit for it.
Of course.
So anyway, I started going back. I decided to go back to school and study animal behavior because that's always what I wanted to do. I did a little remote learning, working with UW Green Bay, and then I ended up going back full time to University of Wisconsin. I got a PhD in zoology with a minor in psych, specialized in animal behavior. And then me and a friend from the university, Nancy Ruffetto, started Dog's Best Friend, doing consulting work as applied animal behaviorist. Nancy went on to do some other things. Wonderful, wonderful woman. Basically, her daughter wanted a horse, so she had to find a job that paid more money. So I started Dog's Best Friend, and it was started as just doing consults. And then so many of our consults were related to people who were in very, very harsh punishment-oriented classes, which was what was going on at that time in Madison, Wisconsin. So we started doing puppy classes and then family dog training classes, and then that business grew and grew and grew. I started giving talks and doing seminars, and then I started writing books and doing a radio show, and then here I am.
And there here we are.
And here
Yeah.
we are.
Like, so obvious. Like, anyone would have predicted that looking at you at 10 years old, that this is how it would have turned out.
You know, it's a good reminder to everybody that you just sort of you just don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't
Yeah.
know.
I just remembered, you're a fabulous storyteller.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
and my next question is about storytelling, but I just remembered that I wanted to start the the episode when we were talking about that this fabulous new book is coming out with how people could find it. So I kind of jumped ahead and forgot to say that. So could you tell us a way to me first off, tell us about the name, because what a cool name, and then tell us where we can get this book, and then I'm gonna ask you my question that I really wanna ask about storytelling too.
So much to talk about. So I love that you asked about the title because I am really fond of it. One, superficially, a way to me is the cue given from a handler to tell a dog to run counterclockwise around the sheep. Um, However, the reason I love it, well, there are two reasons I love it so much. One is it fits in with my hope, dream, fantasy of a trilogy, which is the next book, which I'm already started,
Oh,
is
yay!
Come by, which is go clockwise around the sheep. And then, of course, the last book, is you can see it coming, is going to be That'll Do.
That'll do. That,
So,
that's the only one I know. As a
uh,
non-sheep herder, I know that'll
That'll Do
do.
Pig, right?
So yes, and
but
so
but
I learned in your book a way to me, and I thought that was really cool, but I love this idea of a trilogy.
thank you. But there's another reason I love that title, and that I used it very intentionally. Um, it's also a metaphor for the protagonist, Maddie McGowan.
Mhm.
Maddie McGowan is an animal behaviorist because, write what you know, right? And I was
Yep.
to write fiction, which is really fun and really hard. Um, and Maddie has issues. She has some stuff.
'Cause she's a
And
human.
she's a human, we all have stuff, right? And Maddie pushes people away, but really wants them to come to her. So away to me, away to me. It's that conflict that is the part, many of us have that kind of a life where, we, push pull. So that's the other reason I settled on that title.
Again, I know very little about sheep herding. The bulk of what I know about sheep herding is from having listened to you and read your books over the years, so that's what I know. Um, the the title resonated with me also not specifically about Maddie, but about all of us, about we almost have to go away to discover ourselves.
Oh,
Not
that's
physically
beautiful.
away, but, like, we have to
Get
get
out of our
vulnerable.
heads
We
sometimes.
have to, yes, make this foray into the world in some way to discover the certainty and steadiness of the inner me, whoever that is, because so often we're trying to be who y'all want me to be, but the only real true contentment is, like, when you find who you are. So
Do you wanna
that's how I read it.
do you wanna go on book tour with me? Because that was just
I'd love to.
brilliantly said. That was
I'm just
I
gonna
mean,
follow
really,
you around.
Colleen, seriously, Colleen, that was gorgeous. I mean, that was beautifully, beautifully said, and such an important point. So yeah, so please, come do some more podcasts with me. No, that was very thoughtful and insightful. So can I just tell people that that was my
Please do.
reason? Yeah, 'cause
No, no, please tell them where we can find it. That's what I was
I
kidding.
absolutely will do that. You get full credit.
No, no, not where no, I'm not looking for the credit, I'm looking for you to tell them where they can find the book, because the book is coming
Oh,
out.
thank you, thank you, thank
See, we keep forgetting to promote a book here. We love
thank you.
talking about it.
Yeah, and it's hard for writers because what you wanna be doing is writing, right?
Mhm.
But the good side is I get to talk to all these wonderful people, including you. It's so good to see your beautiful face right now. I know listeners can't, but I get to. So it's really easy. If you just go to my website, which is shockingly patriciamcconnell.com,
Mhm.
right? Two C's, two N's, two L's, patriciamcconnell.com. Um, you can easily see where you can order the book. It actually launches, it's released officially on February 24th, but people can easily pre-order it, and then it will be shipped to you, right, as starting on February 24th. So, and then you can read a lot more about it and read some of the blurbs, which have been so gratifying. And so easy peasy, just go to my name.
Perfect, and I will link that all up in the show notes. And so blurb does remind me, I did see one blurb that had such a lovely description, which resonated with me. That this person, I believe his name was Cy Montgomery, or her name, I don't know.
Or
Um, her. My apologies. Yeah, I caught it as I said it. Um, that it's all creatures great and small meets Agatha Christie, which, like, for if you're a person who likes mysteries and you're a person who likes animals, what a combo. What a combo.
that literally is such a perfect blurb that my publishing company, Kensington, who's been wonderful to me, taking a chance on a first time fiction writer, um, which is
But
very
also National Times bestseller.
well, I mean, you're right. Yes, I've written a lot of books, and I mean, some of them have done really well. The other end, at least, I think it's in 13 languages now. I mean, yeah, I've been very lucky. My books have done really well, but fiction is a whole other thing, Colleen. And there's just a fire hose of it coming out every hour, not just every day, but every hour. So, yeah, so they were wonderful to sort of support that. And now I've completely forgotten what we were talking about because I got so into the fire hose of fiction coming out. Circle me back to where we started with this.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to storytelling, which we've
Sure.
already seen within the conversation we've had so far, what a gifted storyteller you are.
Thank
And
you.
so I was thinking about that is one of the things that I think has really been a foundational piece of your work is that you tell stories where we all get sucked in and we can see we can see what's going on and we can feel what's going on. So both like enough setting that we can see it and then enough emotion that we can feel it, which you absolutely just did with the going around the boardroom story. Like we we're there. We're there. So that's always been one of your gifts, and it's a beautiful asset in nonfiction. Um, and then here you have turned it to fiction. So I am a little curious, what was that like for you to kind of say, well, I've been telling stories forever, but now I'm making them up.
That's so gracious of you, first of all. I mean, it means a lot coming from you. It really does. I'm very gratified. Thank you for all those kind words. And I mean, I love stories too. And obviously it's not just me. I mean, we are I honestly think part of what defines us as humans is stories. Just
Mhm.
as much as language. As soon as there was language, in whatever form, there were stories.
Mhm.
And I've always loved to read. Writing the short little scene-like stories for my nonfiction books was always sort of the most fun. I always loved doing that. It was really fun for me. And so I ended up doing away writing away to me because I was stopping seeing clients. I just got, I'm old. I mean, I'm just an old lady. And I got, I was like in my late 60s and early 70s. It's like I'm not fast enough anymore. I don't feel competent enough to do a really, really good job of working with so many aggressive dogs. Um, and but I didn't want to completely retire, and I love to read, and I love that part of the writing. So I thought I'm just going to do a complete revamp, but it's not a complete revamp. It's like a side. It's going to go down a side road here, and learn to write fiction, which it turns out Colleen, it is so hard to write good fiction. It is easy to write bad fiction. It is really hard to write good fiction, and there's so much that's involved in writing a good, full length story
Mm-hmm.
of a hero's journey, and that's what a way to me is. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's your classic hero's journey, and that Maddie has to go on. But I had so much to learn. I mean, you have to learn about character development, dialogue, and pacing and plot. Who has to write a plot when you're writing, a one-page scene to describe certain kinds of animal behavior? So I mean, it took me a long time. I was very slow. It took me over 5 years. I did stop during the worst of the pandemic when it first started. I was just too overwhelmed with trying to stay alive basically for the first year. Um,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly fun to write fiction, but it's incredibly hard in part because you have this joy of like, I can make anything up, anything can happen. And that means that every point, every sentence that you type into your laptop
Mm-hmm.
or your computer, right? Every sentence could be anything. So you're having to make decisions constantly. So it's really hard. And also, I love the craft of writing. I love good writing. And I, something I can do as an older person is I can write.
Yeah.
And even if my memory, I'm 77 now, my memory's not great. I mean, I'm a 77-year-old person and my memory isn't what it used to be. But with writing, you can just go back and you can go to Google
Mm-hmm.
and you can
Mm-hmm.
look up stuff. And so it's well suited to my stage of life. My hope is that, given my age, frankly, and how slow I am at writing, hopefully I will get to the third book in the trilogy. So everybody cross their paws that that happens. But I am very excited about Come By. I will say that. I've already written
Oh,
about 10
good.
chapters. I have a loose plot. Yeah, yeah. So I'm all excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I have questions about that, but I can't ask them because that might tell things. Um, so standard advice for writers is often write what you know. And our character Maddie, she lives on a farm in Wisconsin, and she's an animal behaviorist. And so I was curious when we're reading about Maddie and her farm and her town and her colleagues and her neighbors and her experiences at sheepdog trials, are we getting a sneak peek into your life?
It's a very fair question. It's a very good question. And I mean, I took the write what you know really seriously because, as I said, I was learning how to be a fiction writer and it's a thing. It's a real skill. And when you read fiction, it looks so easy and it looks so well, this is how it would be. And I mean, the number of drafts, the number of new chapters, the number of chapters that were thrown out, the number of plot changes, the number of times you just go through every single page and edit and edit and edit and edit, right? And edit and edit. Um, so write what you know, like so that was all new to me. As is murder. I'm happy to say. I don't know anything about murder. I know about a lot of really bad things that people know from reading The Education of Will. I don't know about
Mhm.
murder. So I really literally was like, write what you know. Um, and that sort of made it that part easy. I don't think I'm at this point good enough as a fiction writer to create a world I have no connection with.
Yeah.
So, but so, yeah, I mean, the farm is a small farm in Wisconsin. Maddie has sheep. She competes in sheepdog trials. Uh, she has a border collie. She has a Great Pyrenees guard dog. So all of those things are things I've experienced. But I also, Maddie's not me, right? I mean,
Right.
I had to be sure, so Maddie is short and she's a little pudgy and she has gorgeous hair and I don't. She eats McDonald's and pizza but she's like so many of us, so many people in the dog world where she's good with people. She's a good animal behaviorist. She's good with her clients, but she is so reliant on her connection to nature and to the
Mhm.
dogs that she loves. And she, as you know, it's okay to say, she risks her life
Mhm.
basically to save a dog. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where the plot ends up. That's what
Mhm.
drives sort of the rest of the plot. Um, and I think so many of us who love dogs so much. I mean, I know everybody, who listens to your show, whether they're a PhD animal behaviorist or a vet tech or a shelter worker or a dog walker or a dog lover. And I'm not to say just a dog lover, but a dog lover.
Mhm.
Um, have you ever thought, like, would I risk my life to save my dogs? I want to say yes. I
Mhm.
think I would, but I don't know when it really came down to it, would I really do that? But Maddie does. And
It does.
there's no because there's a trilogy. I'm not giving away the plot to say that Maddie does not die. No dog dies and Maddie doesn't die because otherwise there would be no come by, right? There would be
Yeah.
the next book. Yeah. Yeah. So it was really interesting creating a character who lived in a relatively similar place. I'm sorry to say I don't have a beautiful creek that runs through my farm. I wish I did. I have a tiny number of sheep, she had a lot more. Um, but, I think the other thing that you bring up in your question, Colleen, that is really important to me is that, and I think to a lot of people who are also dog lovers, is, dogs are one of our best connections to the sort of non-human natural world.
Mhm.
They're our portal. You could live in the city and still have this portal, right?
Yeah.
It's not just us. And I think that's critical to our mental health, frankly. I think we're
I
losing
agree.
that connection. So the connection to nature was personally very important to me, as is I write about in the education of Will. But but living immersed in nature is also really, real important to Maddie, and I think it's important to so many people. So
Mhm.
I wanted the setting to be almost a character in its own right, and
Yeah.
some of the comments I've had that were just made my heart sing, or that people just really they love the descriptions of the land,
Mhm.
and the farm and Wisconsin, and that was really gratifying to me because I worked really, really hard to try and make it its own character.
And it is. And for those of us who don't live on farms, it's really cool because, again, that's one of your gifts is to create the setting and then add in the emotion. So, it I don't know if I'm right or not, but there's a piece of me that feels like you once had a Great Pyrenees named Bo Peep. Is that
You
accurate?
are correct, I stole that name. I
How
stole it
fu
from my
When
mom.
it popped up, I'm like,
I
why do
love
I
what a memory,
I
Kelly, what a memory. You are
well,
that's
what a great name
I
for a
it's and
for a Great Pyrenees out there in the
I
swamp.
know, and you could argue that that was, like, just like a failure on my part, right, as a fiction writer, but I was coming up with names is really interesting. I spent a long time coming up with Maddie McGowan, by the way, a really long time. I mean, and it was very intentional. Maddie McGowan's name is very, very intentional. And Jack is actually the name of the son of my literary agent, who is a wonderful woman and a dear friend, but it's also a perfect border collie name. It's one
Perfect.
syllable, right?
Mhm.
Shepherding, you have to get a name out really, really quickly. It has to carry over ground quickly. Jack, it's got that great stop at the end. So that was also intentional. And when I got to the Great Pyrenees sheep guarding dog, it was like, how could I get a better name than Bo Peep?
Mhm.
So I just like, okay, I give. I'm just gonna call her Bo Peep. I love that you made that connection.
I when I saw it, I was like, "Interesting." And so then I also noticed that Maddie has a dog, Clementine, who you described as you said, she sleeps 23 hours a day and is occasionally mistaken for a stuffed animal. And another character has a small dog about which you write, Tilly had been George's lapdog, a little one he could spoil all he wanted and never worry about mud or sheep shit in his sheets. So now that's some vivid imagery right there. Yeah. But my question for you, as, a person who lives in suburbia, Is it common for families on farms to have dogs with jobs, so to speak, working dogs, and dogs who don't have a specific role other than to be companion? Is that common?
Yeah, that's a good question. I What I can speak to best is it is relatively common in the sheep herding world. Um, and I know, it's also common in the horse world.
Hmm.
It's very common in the horse world to have, the couple of breeds that are sort of particularly common. But yeah, it's quite common. And when you ask them, people say the same thing. My pug, my corgi, my this. It's like it's a little dog, a terrier. It's a little dog that I can spoil because most of the people in the sheepdog world, not all of them, and I was not one of these people, which is why I was never brilliant at it. I was good at it, but I was never great at it. I was okay at it. I was never great at it. And, being great at it would have meant for me, it's very, very difficult. It's very, very difficult. It's wonderful. It's fascinating. It's just so cool. There are 3 species communicating with each other. But it takes a tremendous. I mean, most of the people who do really well, they have 5 dogs, 7 dogs, 12 dogs. They compete a lot, right? And, they are humans in a sport which is competitive, right? So
Mhm.
so, they well, here's an example of what, like, you wouldn't do. So my border collie Skip tends to be too strong-eyed, meaning he sort of, that pointer blood comes out. The border collies don't hypnotize the sheep, it's the other way around, like, so he'll just start staring at the sheep, and he could stay there for hours, right? He sort of gets locked in, and that's a problem. So when I was competing in trials, which I retired from just last summer, when I was competing in trials, you could never let him do that because he'd get too sticky, right? And he
Mhm.
did get too sticky. But so I was always like, "Oh, don't let him do that. Don't let him do that." Now, just this morning, I lay him down in front of the sheep and I got the hay and I did this and I did that. He was in heaven, right? I didn't have to I didn't have to worry about it. Yeah, yeah. So, I think for people who are that competitive, they feel a lot of pressure to
Mhm.
behave themselves correctly to their own dog's advantage. You don't wanna screw your dog over, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not about, it's just it's not about being harsh. It's just about certain things you can let them do, like let Skip stare at the sheep that you don't feel like you could do while they're competing. So I think that's part of why people just love having a little dog. Once little and they can travel around easily. Um, and people travel just all over the country a lot in their campers and their big RVs. And yeah, so it's not uncommon at all. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that a lot of your listeners also are horse lovers, and I'll bet you some of them are thinking of their stable. It's like, "Oh, yeah, yeah." Jack
Yeah.
Russell Terriers, I mean, they're famous for being around stables.
Mhm. Yeah, they absolutely are. It is interesting how there's so many different roles that dogs have in this world, and so many different ways of being with a dog for humans. So throughout the book, here and there, all over the place, you've got a lot of information about dog behavior and also about education, like important things to know or noticing this or understanding that. And even your philosophy about sort of training and relationship. How important was it to you to have that in there? It is not in any way like strong-armed in. There's nothing preachy. There's nothing like, "Okay, and now here's my dissertation," but it's sprinkled. It's all over in just little tiny moments where you add something in. How important was it to you to make sure that was in there?
It was, it was very important, but not intentional in the way that one might think. My intention was to write a great story. My intention was to write a fiction book. Um, and by the way, years ago, I had run by my agent. I said, "I wanna write we're talking about my next book. And I said, I want to write that's like an American version of All Creatures Great and Small, but with a woman behaviorist instead of a male vet. And she
Mhm.
said, I don't think that would sell that well. And I sort of forgot about it. And then I realized I actually did that. I actually sort of did that. I just turned it into a murder mystery. So,
Yeah.
so my intention always was to create believable characters and believable dialogue and to advance the plot and to have the reader totally engaged in turning the page. But Maddie McGowan is an animal behaviorist, so she had a life, right?
Mhm.
So I I wrote, and Maddie sees clients, by the way, and their clients, some of the clients will show up again, by the way, and come by. Especially Daryl and his other brother, Daryl. For those of you who remember the Bob Newhart show. So, so I was, super, super focused on the craft of writing. And so the part about seeing her, seeing clients and how she behaved around dogs, it just came that was just like, that's the part I know. It just came really naturally. And it wasn't until I was halfway through, 2/3 of the way through, and I would run into something I'd written that was to advance the plot, and I would go, "Oh, like, wait, Maddie would never do that." As in, I would never do that. You know? As
Mhm.
in all the animal behaviors and good trainers I know would never do that, right? And so I found myself so I never intentionally wrote a book to teach non-dog people about more about dog behavior. But one of the things I've since learned since starting to write fiction is that one of the reasons people enjoy fiction is that so often they pick up a book that has some story, that has some hero's journey, some tension, drama, but it introduces you to a whole other world,
Mhm.
like All Creatures Great and Small.
Yeah.
But this is what it's like to be a vet in the countryside and, somewhere in England.
Mhm.
And so I started realizing that this could be a benefit of this
Yeah.
story. Um, and one of my hopes, by the way, and maybe your listeners can help, is getting this book out not just to the dog community, but also to mystery lovers.
Yeah.
Well, most of the people who've read it are dog lovers, but people who are not dog lovers have read it and also really enjoyed it. So most of the publicity right now is all sort of in the dog world, and anything that I can do, you can do, we can do, sort of get mystery lovers to read this book, and then
Mhm.
hopefully do learn about, why a dog who's growling at you in a corner is not trying to exert dominance over if people do learn through enjoying a story a lot more about the reality of canine behavior and what it's like to be a behaviorist. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not spending all of our time running through fields of daisies with golden retriever puppies, right?
Right.
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 you know,
And also, I don't know if you're talking about you, but Maddie is not just rolling in the dough either.
I you know
She's
that
working very hard, but
very intentionally. I needed to convey the reality of
Mhm.
someone who's an animal behaviorist, and
Mhm.
she's so lucky she has a farm because she got money from her divorce, right? She wouldn't have otherwise, but she has enough money along with her behavior clientele and raising sheep that she gets by just fine, but she doesn't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
and how many, you don't make a lot of money from being a dog trainer and animal behaviorist, right? You can make
No.
a living if you're lucky and if you're smart, but, and if you're good, but, you're not going to get rich.
Yep. So I ask all of my guests to share some words that have meaning for them, and the words you share feel so appropriate to this conversation. You shared a line from the Mary Oliver poem. And whoops, I have the wrong paper in front of me, and I do not want to misquote Mary Oliver because this line does get a little bit misquoted from time to time. So the Mary Oliver line is, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" So tell me what this means to you.
It's a well-known quote, and It should be well known because it's such a reminder that, to me, this is it. This is it. You know, I'm easily seduced into like, well, when X happens, then, I'll be
Mhm.
Y. I'll be happier. I'll be this. I'll be that. I'll be healthier. I'll be, I'll be what? And it's just, I also do some meditation. And one of the things that is so prominent in meditation is right here, right now, right here, right now. And that
Mhm.
is what our human brains pull us away from all the time.
Yes.
How much of the time do we spend thinking about the past, thinking about the future? No, no, no. Right now, what is happening right now? I'm sitting in my study. I can see these beautiful woods outside, although it's very sort of dim and gray. There's no snow. I'm looking at your beautiful face, and I'm doing this wonderful thing, talking to this amazing woman who's done wonderful things in her life right here, right now. This is my one wild and precious life. And it's just, I think we need to be reminded of that, not every day, but every 5 minutes.
Mhm.
You know,
Yes.
this is it. This is it. And you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, and I love that she's not just saying like, life is fleeting, savor it, or right here, right now. I love the wild and precious.
Mhm.
Don't you love that? Doesn't that feel liberating and freeing?
Yeah.
Doesn't that convey that to you? It's our one wild and precious life. What the hell? You know,
Mhm.
really want to do something? Yeah, well, maybe you should just do it, you know?
Maybe you should just do it.
And that's sort of what I did with this book. It was like, I don't know, I never knew that this would be published at all. I was extremely gratified to found a publisher. So, yeah.
So you wrote it. It was coming out of you regardless.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it
I
was
started
coming.
writing it as I literally started writing it for fun. I set up this wonderful partnership with a brilliant writer, Kat Warren, who wrote What the
Mhm.
Dog Knows, that fabulous memoir about training a scent detection dog, human remains detection dog. And she decided she also wanted to start writing fiction. Obviously, she'd written nonfiction too. Somehow we met at a conference or something. Anyway, we have been working on our fiction books together for years. So we meet every month. I send her some stuff. She sends me some stuff. We're readers, we're critiques, we're editors, we're helpers, we're cheerleaders. Um, and we both started as like, well, this could be fun,
Mhm.
you know? And
Yeah.
and I'm so glad I did. I'm really, really glad I did.
Yeah. It is so wonderful to have somebody to bounce ideas off of and to share things with, and it helps when you kinda stumble and think like, "Oh, I can't. It's too big, it's too hard, it's too whatever," to just know that there's somebody who thinks you can and who is happy you're trying, happy that you're present and kind of living into what your desire is. And the words you shared, I thought just resonated so deeply with words that you have at the end of your book, which are, "But they trusted themselves to try, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough." And that's kinda what you just said here, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that you pulled that in. That was very insightful of you. Thank you, Colleen. That was very thoughtful. That's all we can do, right?
All we can do.
It's all we can do. And it's so easy to worry about success and am I going to be good enough and I'm going to make a fool of myself. But if you never try, you know, having the courage and the sense of self to be able to say, well, I've always wanted to, you name it, be a stand-up comedian, be a dog trainer. I mean, I'm sure this happens to you all the time. People come up to you and say, "Oh, I've always wanted to do what you do, but I've never, never, never." It's like, well, you're not dead
Mhm.
yet. You know,
Yep.
People will say, "I'm 45, and is it too late?" And it's like, "I'm 77, and I just started writing." Of course,
Yeah.
yes, of course. It's maybe, just maybe, trying is enough.
Well, when we think about the whole wild and precious life, we're not actually able to save it for that rainy day or that time when it's all right or something. So trying is the only way you can have that wild and precious life. Like it's such an uncomfortable catch-22 at times because, I mean, I certainly spent decades feeling like I wasn't good enough at all sorts of things and sort of inhibiting myself from trying things until I was ready, until I knew more, until I, you know, figured out this or got that certification.
Colleen, I'm sure people would love to know, how did you make the plunge? What got you into this field? I mean, you're a really smart woman. You could obviously be doing a ton of different things. What is it that got you into this amazing world we live in?
Well, there are actually 2 plunges that are probably relevant. The first is I was always the person who loved dogs and, um, and took classes with my dogs and et cetera, et cetera. And my sister worked for the local park authority, and they posted that they were looking for a dog trainer. And, this is way back when you write a letter. I wrote a letter saying, wow, how does someone become a dog trainer? Because I was like, just tell me where the school is. Or, well, that's amazing. I'd love to do it. They hired me. So that sense of like, I don't know enough to be the teacher. I had one book, the Full Hard Manual. That's what I had.
Oh,
It was way
yep.
back.
Yeah, we all started a long
We all
way
started there.
moving up, didn't we? Yep.
But that knowledge that I loved dogs so much and I had this opportunity and like they couldn't point me toward education at that time.
Mhm.
So it was that, a book and an opportunity. So I was like, okay. And that fed me for so long. But the idea that I didn't know what I needed to know was both an impetus to learn, which was awesome,
Mhm.
and a feeling of insecurity and not enoughness that I could never, ever quite fill. And then later in my career, I hit a burnout compassion fatigue experience where I just went into studying like psychology and all sorts of things that was really just for me, just interesting to me. And so my career started going, and you probably don't remember this, but you were one of the first guests on my podcast back when I thought it was not going to be for pet professionals. Because I saw you at a conference once and I was like, I'm starting a podcast and it's going to be for business using some dog stuff for people themes because I was afraid to
I
serve pet
remember.
professionals.
Now that you remind me, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was afraid to serve pet pros because I knew how much pain was in the community. So for a number of years, I served others.
Mhm.
But this is my heart.
Mhm.
It drew me right back. And so in over, a course of some years, now, like, my passion is just supporting pet professionals to try.
Mm.
And I don't care what it is they wanna try. I just know that they want to try, and if I can help them. So in both cases, it was this, "Oh, I'd really love to," and then that whole feeling of, "Well, maybe,"
Maybe,
and
maybe, just
so
maybe it will be enough. I think so
yeah.
many women, and I should, it's not fair, I should include men too, but I think so many of us live with this belief that we're not enough.
Yeah,
No, we're not enough. We're not
so
good
common.
enough. And that's where that just try,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
I think is so important. Well, you're just a wonderful role model and example. And I've followed your career and I'm just so impressed with the work you've done. It's just such a joy to see these smart, committed people adding so much to the world of dog behavior and dog training.
Well, thank you. I'm going to try to accept that graciously because there's a whole part of me that's like,
Just breathe. Just breathe.
"Yeah. Oh, it's so fun talking with you." And I don't wanna run on and on and on, take your whole day. So I think I'm going to say right here, could you please tell us again about, I think you have a book out. What's it called? Where can we find it?
I don't remember. Oh, wait. No, I do. I wrote a mystery novel called A Way to Me, and you can go to my website, patriciamcconnell.com, and learn more about it. You can pre-order it, and I also will say I'm doing a book tour in Wisconsin, and of all places, Texas. And I just say that because there's so many places I've done a lot of seminars and speeches in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of them. But I am thrilled going there. I actually, my beloved deceased sister's husband and dear friends live in San Antonio, so I'll be starting my book tour there and then go to Houston. Anyway, so I would love if people who come up to me, if they do get to an event, please come up to me and say, I was listening to Unleashed, I was listening to Colleen, and I heard you, blah, blah, blah. I love hearing from people who've been listening to people like us. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was such a pleasure to talk with you today.
well, we obviously have nothing to talk about, you and I.
I know.
It was a struggle, but we managed. So.
We did. We tried. That's our conversation for today. If something we talked about resonated, I invite you to sit with it. Notice what feels true and what you want to explore further. You don't have to have it all figured out to start moving toward what matters. Whatever showed up for you today, clarity, questions, even resistance, trust that it's pointing you towards something important. For more support, join my weekly notes at ColleenPilar.com. And until next time, remember, you are enough. Always. Just as you are.